Hello and welcome. So today what are we going to do is we are going to learn about DNS. In our previous video we learned about DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and the job was to basically assign IP addresses to all client machines or end users automatically. So that was the job of DHCP. Today we are going to learn about DNS. DNS stands for Domain Name System, and this is one of the essential services that we use nowadays. For example, today whenever you type google.com, for example, so if I go to type cmd and type ping google.com, so when I type google.com, this google.com is a DNS name that I am typing. So this is a DNS name that I am typing, and basically when I type this, what happens is that the DNS resolves this into an IP address for me. So when I type google.com, you can see that it basically does what? It basically resolves it into IP address. So you can see that pinging google.com and then it is showing up an IP address, right? So this is the job of DNS. DNS resolves name into IP address and IP address into the name. So that's what the DNS do. So DNS is really important, and if we don't use DNS, then we will have to use IP address everywhere. And I don't think it's a good idea to use IP address, right? So if I am calling Zia, right? If I am calling Zia, is it easy to call Zia by his name, or is it easy to call Zia 44, 32, 61, 59? That is going to be much harder, right? Because not everyone will remember that number, but everyone will remember Zia, right? Everyone will remember Zia. So that is why it is really important to have this DNS system in place. So this DNS resolves name into IP address and IP address into the name, correct? So that's what the job of DNS server is. So IP addresses are always hard to remember. Like I already gave you an example. And DNS lookups can be performed by any device. So what is DNS lookup? So for example, if I come in here and I say NS lookup, in here you can see that I am trying to do what? I am trying to do name server lookup. So let's just say that you want to look up for yahoo.com. Now you can see that when you say yahoo.com, it is telling us an answer. Name is yahoo.com, and you can see that it is using IP version 6 addresses. It is using one public private IP, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and maybe more. So NS lookup can be performed by any device. So by any device that supports it, that can actually do it, you can do NS lookup or DNS lookup for that device, from that device. So alright, so that is basic definition of DNS. That is the basic definition of what? DNS. And DNS, we have two kind of zones. One is called forward lookup zone, one is called reverse lookup zone. So these are two main ones that we have: forward lookup zone and reverse lookup zone. What is forward lookup zone? contains names with associated IP address. What does it mean? It means Zia is the name, right? Is equal to 10.10.10.1. So contain names which is Zia or which is computer name. For example, Zia computer 1, which is name associated. Associated means this IP address is linked with the name. So that is what forward lookup zone is. Enable forward lookup queries. So whenever you want to find out, for example, yahoo.com, what are you doing is you're performing a query, DNS query, to find out the IP address. Who is doing this for you? Who is trying to figure out for you? The forward lookup zone. The forward lookup zone is doing it for you because forward lookup zone has the IP address associated with the name. And when you call the name, you say Zia computer 1, it resolves it into IP address. Right? At least one forward lookup zone must be configured for the DNS to work properly. You need one forward lookup zone. You at least need one forward lookup zone for the DNS to work properly. If there is no forward lookup zone, when you type ping Zia computer 1, nothing will happen. You see, you will get an answer as ping request could not find Zia computer 1. If there is no forward lookup zone, then there is no answer. If there is a forward lookup zone, there is an answer. Whenever you install Active Directory, it automatically installs DNS. For the first time when you install AD, it installs the DNS. It also creates a forward lookup zone. What is reverse lookup zone? Reverse lookup zone is reverse of forward. It's opposite of forward. It contains IP address associated with DNS name. What does it mean? It means 10.10.10.1 is equal to Zia computer 1. See, in here it's named to the IP. Forward lookup zone is named to the IP address. Reverse lookup zone is IP address to the name. So that is the difference. Very easy. Okay. And then we have another zone that is called Active Directory Integrated. Active Directory Integrated zone is really important. It's really good to have because it allows replication. If you have multiple sites, one in San Francisco, one in Sacramento, one in China, one in Canada, anytime when you create a new DNS record, if you want that DNS record to synchronize from one location to another location, Active Directory Integrated zones can easily replicate it from one place to another. So you don't have to create it on each location manually. The information is going to be stored in Active Directory. It will be replicated with your Active Directory, and you can replicate it across all your DNS servers in your forest. Let's just say kt.local, right? kt.local in San Francisco, Sacramento, Canada, China, Afghanistan. So what will happen here is anytime when you create a new DNS record it will replicate, it will synchronize with all other locations. If you remember, we created a user in Active Directory and it was replicating with additional domain. Same thing happens with the DNS when it replicates. One of the other great things that you will get with Active Directory integration is it will provide a security. It will encrypt it when it will send it. The other great thing is fault tolerance and security is provided. If our DNS server goes down, if one of our DNS server goes down, the other DNS server that is integrated with the Active Directory, it will basically do what? It will work as a DNS. So you don't have to worry that you lost your DNS because it is providing you fault tolerance, load, and you're getting all those good things like you do with primary domain, additional domain. So that is a good thing that you get with that. If I ask you now, hey Inam, what is DNS? Inam will say DNS resolves name into IP, IP into the name. Hey Inam, how many lookup zones or zones we have? Inam will say we have forward lookup zone, we have reverse lookup zone, we have Active Directory integrated zone. Okay, what is forward lookup zone? Forward lookup zone contains names associated with IP. Reverse lookup zone contains IP address associated with names. For example, 10.10.10.1, Zia's computer 1. Active Directory integrated zone is integrated with Active Directory across all domain. It provides security and it provides fault tolerance. If one of the DNS is down, the other DNS will still function. So those are some examples. All right. What are different records that we have in DNS? We have a host record, we have alias, we have mail exchanger, name server, pointer, SRV record, and the start of authority. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are different records that we have in DNS. Let's see them in practical, how they work. Okay, let's see them in practical. So I am in my primary domain controller. If I log into my primary domain controller, as an administrator, I will go into start menu. So first you do what? You click on, let me close that. You click on start menu. You click on administrative tools, and if you scroll down, you see you have DNS, which was installed when we created our Active Directory. Click on DNS. Once you click on DNS, you can see that this is my DNS console. This is how DNS looks like. You see, I have forward lookup zone, I have reverse lookup zone. If I expand forward lookup zone, you can see that it is associated with my domain name, kd.local. kd.local. And you can see that kdsfo dc01 is created automatically every time when you join a computer to the domain. It will also create a DNS record in forward lookup zone and should also create it in reverse lookup zone if you configure it correctly. If I right click here, you can see all the, you see these records, you see these records in the PowerPoint, you see I have it here too. A host, alias, mail exchanger, and so on. If I click here, new a host record, this is where I do what? I resolve name into IP. So when I type the name here, it means resolve the name into IP. Okay, what should it be? Zia Computer 1. We will create something here, 28. Now, I am telling the DNS server, hey DNS server, create a DNS record for Zia's Computer 1 and the IP address of Zia is 10.10.10.28. What does it mean here? It means, Mr. DNS, I want to ping Zia with a name, not with IP address. So that's what we are doing here. When you create a host record, you are basically creating a DNS name or DNS record so you can ping it by name instead of IP address. What is this option? Create associated pointer record. Pointer record is, if I select this, what will happen? It will also create a reverse lookup zone record for me. So I can also resolve IP into the name. If you choose this, you will be able to resolve IP into the name and name into the IP. You see, when I say add host, the host is successfully added. The host is, you see, created here. If I come to reverse lookup zone, you see it's also created here. I didn't create it here. You can see it's already created. Why? Because I chose that option, create PTR record. You remember? Pointer record. So this is how you create. This is how you create a host record. Let's see if we can ping it. If we can resolve it, I mean. Maybe not right away, but we can give it a try. Was it Zia's Computer 1? See, it's working. Pinging Zia's computer.kd.local 10.10.10.10. Reply from 10.10.10. The IP address you see is 28. So that is what a host record do. When you create a host record, you can ping a device by its name. Let me give you a live scenario. Zia is working for a company. Right? Here is the live scenario. Zia is working for a company called kt.local, right? Zia's manager came to him and asked him to make sure that we can ping all of our firewalls, switches, and routers by the name, not IP. So Zia is working somewhere. His manager came to him and say, hey Zia, we have 5 firewalls, we have 10 switches, we have 20 routers. I want them to be pinged by name because I cannot remember the IP address. So his manager says, hey Zia, I cannot remember the IP address, it's a lot. I want them to be pinged by their name. And I want you to name them like this: SFO Firewall 1, Sacramento Firewall 1, right? And based on location, Los Angeles, LA Firewall 1. So now, same thing with the switches. Now Zia will do what? Zia will come here, say Neo A host record, and then Zia will say LA Firewall 1, and then he will make sure the IP addresses are correct. Okay, the firewall at LA is 10.10.10.50. Okay, at. Now once Zia creates all the records, what will happen? The manager, now we will go to the manager and say, all done, you can now ping them. The manager will go to his computer and say ping LA Firewall 1. Okay, LA Firewall 1, 10, 10, 10, 50. Good job, Zia. Now we can ping it with the name, not with the IP addresses. So that is the job of like a host record, like you can use in real life whenever you want to create a DNS record. So that's how you can create manually. But again, when you join a computer to the domain, it automatically adds it here. Okay, when you register a computer or a device, it will automatically add here. But that's how you statically can add it. Another one that we have is we have mail exchanger record. Another one that we have is called mail exchanger record. So what is mail exchanger record? We have CNAME. I'll come to this. New mail exchanger record. So mail exchanger is for mails, right? So whenever you want to specify who is the exchanger of mail, who is doing your mail services, like in your organization, you will have an exchange server, right? An exchange server that is doing the delivery of all your mails and so on. So basically you can do what? You can specify the name of your email server in here, and then you can set priority. If you have multiple mail servers, based on that you can set priority, which one is going to be the first mail to transfer emails and so on. So basically that is the job of mail exchanger. Mail exchanger is for mails, emails, right? And then we have like pointer record, which we already saw how it works. And we have other records as well, such as canonical name, for example, for sometimes we want to do forwarding and so on. So those are like basically different kind of records that we have. For the before I move forward, one other thing that I want to add here is, for the first time when you install the DNS server, there's no reverse lookup zone, so you always have to create a reverse lookup zone. So right now you can see that I only have 10, 10, 10. If you have more networks, for example you have 10, 10, 11, 10, 10, 12, 10, 10, 13, you will have to create all of them in here, because that will help you create the PTR records and so on. Another thing is, if one other thing that you can do if you want to troubleshoot is, if you right click here, you can see that I can always restart DNS services, I can pause DNS services, I can stop DNS services, I can clear the cache. Sometimes you may have to clear the cache. How? Because if you have like thousands of records here, if you're deleting them or they're being cached, like some of those records, sometimes you have to clear the cache if you're having problems. So you can simply click on here and it will do what? It will clear the cache for you. Correct? Another thing that we have, stale records. Stale records, what does it mean? Do you want to scavenge all the stale records? Most of the times, what is a stale record? A stale record is basically unused or records that are created here but they're never used. They are never used. So if you are working for a big company, you have like 50,000 different records, maybe like 1,000, 2,000 of them is stale. So in order to do a cleanup, you can do what? You can always uh, clear them. So do you want to um, scavenge them, all the stale resources? Yes. So what it will do is it will remove all those stale. What is stale? Unused, like they are there for a long time and you don't need them, and it will do a cleanup for you. Sometimes if your DNS is not working, if your DNS server is not working, simply right click here and say all task and restart it. That may help. Clear cache will also help. Clear cache may also help sometimes depending on what type of issue you're having. So those are all different things that you can do. So this is like basic or like how you can use DNS server on daily life. Um, any questions you have? One other thing that you can do as well is if you right click on your domain name, reload can also help troubleshoot. If you want to do some troubleshooting, like it's not loading or like you want to refresh the folder that you have here, you can right click on it and then alt task and reload. So reload will basically do like a refresh for you if you want to.